Oh, welcome to the YAHOWah Blog Family Hour. We are here with the whole cast of characters. We have Leah, Wookie, and the Lion of Judah over to screen right, my left, in my pool, mind you. And I don't know if you're properly attired for that, but thank goodness. There, this is Kevin on the top, who has gone up a grade, and it's no longer just Sir Shorts, but now is the maven of YouTube. Got a YouTube channel, the Blue Channel is what we're calling it. Yep. That is roaring. It is the YAHOWAH's Blog is the name of the channel. And then our resident artist, all around good guy, favorite of the show for the past 200 years, and the guy who, if we had a vote, would replace me in a nanosecond among the of the Covenant family. My favorite, good friend, Captain Kirk. Hey. Okay, Kirk, how is your bride doing? How is Sylvia doing? You said that she was under the weather.
She's a little bit better today, as far as she got downstairs a couple of times, but for a few minutes. No, she had full-blown COVID. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
The virus that keeps on giving.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Woonon. The lab. Wow, pretty amazing. And we have the king of the cables, the keeper of the cables over here. And we'll get a picture of Rich here in a moment. Thank you, Rich, for bringing the show to us.
Still trying to remain anonymous.
Trying to remain anonymous.
Not doing well.
This will be an interesting family hour today, because I think we have come upon something that was really my intent to find about 3 weeks ago, when we started this quest to refine the timeline, just to validate that we had everything as accurate as it could be, because there's a lot of moving parts here. We've just recently come to know that one of the jobs of Yada as the Nakar and as the Choder is to serve as the Parah, and it's all over the place. We just missed it because it goes by other translations like productive in some places, and fruitful, but also as a girly cow. It's the heifer of the red heifer is also a Parah. And so it's not obvious when you're doing your translations initially, but once you start paying attention to what God has in store, it becomes pretty obvious that that is what's going to happen on Towrah. And once you know that, then you have an entirely different perspective of these concluding Mikra and what's going to play out over these next 98 months. Because you know now that the conclusion of the time of Jacob's troubles isn't actually on Sukkah, which you would naturally think. We return to the garden at Sukkah. This is going to be the great honeymoon and the celebration after the wedding. And you would think that Sukkah would be it, or maybe even the 8th day of Sukkah. But no, everything's been resolved a long time before that. A long time in terms of days. And then you might say, well, it's got to be Yom Kippurim. Dode comes back. He's going to kick some Palestinian behind, and we're just not going to have any more terrorists around. And he's going to do what he does best. But the fact is that Yahweh already takes care of that business.
I know the answer.
Yeah, 10 days before Dode returns. So it's not the homecoming that is the end of things.
No.
And it actually turns out to be a grisly murder. Mm-hmm. That turns out to be the end of things, and that is this same guy, this Adamah Parah, is slaughtered by the Torahless one on the Temple Mount on the 24th of September, which is Towrah.
After the jerk proclaims that he's a god.
Well, that quite a ways after he has done that, but indeed, and we have determined with really absolute certainty that this Torahless one who does these kinds of things is none less than Donald J. Trump. And so he is the person that Christians have been searching for as the Antichrist. And we made that discovery, and it's a rather important discovery.
They love him.
And something we were able to prove. And of course, right now, the internet is exploding with all manner of criticisms of Donald Trump. I mean, no matter what you turn, no matter whether it's his diction, his failing memory, the stupidity of his speeches, his international blunders, his bribes, his gaslighting, his just completely unethical nature, his past as a pedophile. I mean, you name it, everything that could go wrong for him has gone wrong. And yet he's so chaotic, he's able to push it all away because he has a new chaos for every day. You know what today's chaos was?
No.
Fetch the labor reports, wasn't it?
No. Today's chaos is that, okay, with everything falling on him and him trying to deflect it and all of this sort of thing, he even said that the letter that he wrote with the naked woman on it to his buddy Epstein was could have been a fraud. It could have been, written by somebody else who just
It must have been Obama.
Actually, he did. He said it could have been Obama. He said it could have been Obama. That's under his name. Anyway, but that's not it. He decided to announce that he has dispatched 2 of our nuclear submarines to Russia to counter the Russian threat, because he didn't like something the Russians said, and that words really matter, and that he was going to counter that with 2 nuclear submarines. Now, first of all,
wow,
the whole idea of a nuclear submarine, and the reason that nuclear submarines are different than land-based nuclear missile silos, what is that?
They can hide.
Yeah, you don't know where they are, right? So what's the dumbest thing that the president could say? I'm sending them to Russia.
Yeah, give me the coordinates.
Yeah.
And you've got a nation with the most nuclear bombs, and you're telling them, oh, by the way, I'm sending 2 of my submarines filled with nuclear bombs.
Right.
To threaten them. He's threatening nuclear war is the new distraction for
I was gonna have a punchline like weapons of mass distraction.
Yes, but
However,
good. That's good.
However, these are more than weapons of mass distraction. But I think he's full of it. He's delusional.
He is always absolutely delusional. I posted a bunch of things on the Facebook site that are people mocking him mercilessly, which is what he deserves.
Putin
anyway, so I went to Daniel because Daniel has the most specific timeline information. If you want the broad sweep of history, past, present, and future, which prophet do you turn to?
The broad sweep, Yahowah.
Isaiah, Yahshua. And Yahshua is where we were able to piece together the fact that the treaty that thins Israel at the waist, making Israel indefensible, which is all they could talk about today at the United Nations. I mean, one person after another.
Barfest.
I mean, it was a barfest. It was true that at the United Nations, it's going to be something like 200-5 against Israel.
Yep.
And now, to some degree, Israel has brought this on themselves because the war in Gaza was absolutely ludicrous. I mean, can you imagine a war strategy dumber than you're going after an embedded Islamic group in an enclave where 100% of the population are murderous Muslims that want to kill you, and you're thinking that you could rid that enclave of these murderous Muslim jihadists with bullets and bombs, which only makes more of them. And you get yourself in a situation where now it's your responsibility to feed 2 million people that want to kill you. And while you're feeding the 2 million people that want to kill you, the whole world is accusing you of genocide. So you can't win either way. And you paint yourself into that situation. That's got to be the dumbest war strategy in the history of war.
It is, but let's be clear. The person who brought the emergency meeting before the UN was none other than Mohammed bin Salman.
Of course. Yeah, it's this is his deal, because what they want is an Islamic State carved out of the heart of Israel that they control. And the ploy that everybody in Israel said, oh, this is great. The Arab League for the first time condemned Hamas and says they must give up their weapons. They have to give them to the PA. And you're going, oh, good God. If
their leadership is staying in their hotels.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, the bottom line is that if you do not know history, you are doomed to repeat it. That is just bottom line.
True.
And what Jews still do not recognize is that Al-Aqsa flood, which is a line, by the way, from the Quran, where everyone that perpetrated Al-Aqsa flood, well, very few of them relatively were Hamas. They were all Muslims, and they're all jihadists. And as they killed, they were all screaming, Allahu Akbar, not Hamas Akbar. And what they didn't realize is that there was a duplicate of that raid that had been manifest and was copiously detailed in Islamic lore. And that is when Muhammad, after Hudaybiyah, which is essential for understanding the ploy that the Arab League is perpetrating on Israel, that after Hudaybiyah, where Muhammad had Allah say in the 9th surah that any treaty between a Muslim and a non-Muslim is not binding on the Muslim. Well, that puts you in a really good spot if you're going to do a treaty with a Muslim, right? Right. And the reason he did that is Muhammad got cold feet when he approached Kaabaville. We'll call it Kaabaville because it was really Petra, not Mecca. And when he approached, he didn't have enough men under arms. And the leader of his clan came out of Kaabaville and said, hey, you know, Muhammad, the last time you were here, you were a laughingstock. We ran you out of town mocking you because of the Knight's Journey and the satanic verses and the idolatrous indulgence and all that sort of thing. You remember the last time you were here? Do you really think you want to go into Kaabaville again? Because you're going to be mocked out of existence. And Muhammad got cold feet because it was true. And so he made a deal with the Kaabavillians, his clan, that he would not terrorize them for 10 years. He would rape their daughters. He wouldn't kidnap them. And he wouldn't terrorize them for 10 years. And he left, and his group of Muslim misfits were up in arms. They said, wait, we came here for rape. We came here for pillage. We came here for arson. We came here for torture. We came here to kill. And we came here for rape. I know I already mentioned rape, but they loved rape. And a line from Blazing Saddles. And they, I'm sorry, not a PG show. I don't remember if you ever heard that line, one of my favorites. It's just because it's so insensitive. But they were all belly aching, and Muhammad had a mutiny on his hands. If you were going to lead a criminal enterprise of ghoulish gang members that all they want to do is rape and pillage, you've got to give them meat to rape and pillage, right? And so
they came to party.
So they came to party, and Muhammad did a deal where he said, I'm not Allah's messenger. Allah's not a god, and we won't terrorize anybody anymore. It's called the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which in the 9th surah, Allah refutes and say that any treaty between a Muslim is not binding on the Muslim. So Muhammad came back the following year and wiped them out. Now, and that's exactly what the Arab League is trying to perpetrate by give Hamas's guns to the Palestinian Authority, which has as much popularity among Gazan Muslims as Asher has with fleas. So they don't have a prayer. But what Muhammad did when his goons threatened him is he went for the easiest patsy. And it was a farming community just like the kibbutzim on October 7th. And that farming community was comprised entirely of Jews, just like October 7th. And Muhammad approached them screaming, Allahu Akbar.
I'm surprised they weren't screaming, Kaibar, Kaibar, Yada Yahowah.
Yes, they did, by the way. And so Kabar, where Muhammad's goons pillaged the place, torched the place, tortured Jews, raped every Jewish woman in the community, and enslaved Jews, committing acts of mass murder, is an exact replica of what happened on October 7th. And yet Jews are unwilling to admit it, to acknowledge it, and so they repeat their past. And now they're listening to the Arab League say, give all the guns of Hamas over to the PA, and we'll be ready to rock and roll on that Islamic State carved out of the heart of Israel, so that Israel becomes indefensible. And of course, the 15 minutes after the deal is done, all the guns go right back to Hamas. You're going to have Alaska 3 or 2.0 or 3.0 if you count Kabar.
Well,
So this is what is happening, and we're doing our best to try to prevent it. But that will be the first official act of the time of Israel's troubles. And this program is to tell you the day that the time of Israel's troubles is going to begin and what other things happen around it. So this is all pertinent to this particular program. The prophets are very clear. Al-Aqsa flood 2.0 is going to happen. It is going to happen in the early summer months of 2027, and it is going to be far greater in intensity with Muslim mujahideen than was the first version almost 2 years ago, probably 1,000 times worse. And the death toll on Jews is going to be in the range of 10 million worldwide, worse than the Holocaust, according to the prophets.
This is one YAHOWAH that wants nothing to do with that.
Well, of course not, but it's still our responsibility to tell Yahud that it's going to happen and that there's only one way out of it. And that is to stop trusting the likes of Trump, stop trying to do deals with MBS of Saudi Arabia and the Abraham Accords, and turn to your only actual ally, who you left 3,000 years ago, and that is none other than Yahowah. And so that is our job. We say, turn to Yahowah and you won't be caught up in that carnage. But we need to tell them when these things are going to happen, and that is an essential part of our program here tonight, and we're going to be doing that. So the purpose of going to Daniel was to firm up the timeline, why we were there, moved into the 12th chapter of Daniel, and it became obvious that the Coppercon, bronze boy, was in fact none other than Donald Trump, and that he is the old fellow that has the enormous ego and the ugly comb-over hair, as he was described. It's none other than Donald Trump. He's the Antichrist. All right. So while we were there, I learned some interesting facts. I hinted at them in our program yesterday relative to timing. And before we go into this program, a couple of other notes. In our prior family hour, one of the things that we did is we were able to use very specific information. In fact, just flat out numbers, 1,290, for example, and another one that was 45 days longer. And then Moedim, and Chesed, a series of Moed, to determine 3 dates with great precision. And I still want to re-emphasize those 3 dates. The first of those 3 dates tells us exactly when Donald Trump, as the Torahless one, is going to arrive in Jerusalem to establish himself as a supreme ruler. And that is the 29th of January. It is during the last week of Ramadan. The second is 45 days later, when he is going to announce on behalf of Satan. He is not only demon possessed, he is actually possessed by the spirit of Satan himself. And he's going to announce that Satan is God. And that's going to take place on the Ides of March. And that is because the history of Rome, and of Rome going from a republic to imperial Rome, which is exactly what Trump is trying to do with the United States,
Yep.
And then declaring himself as supreme ruler, apart from any interference from the Senate, the same as imperial Rome, and then declare himself as God, which is what JC did, Julius Caesar, and then to commemorate the death of Julius Caesar, because the rebirth of Julius Caesar is going to be the God-man, which we call the Coppercon Donald J. Trump. That's going to happen on the Ides of March, the 15th of March, 2030. So January 29th, he arrives. On March 15th of 2030, he declares he is a god. 33 days after that is when the two witnesses arrive, Yada and Elia, and those two witnesses will arrive on Passover, which is the 18th of April in 2030. And all of this is deduced by very specific information that is provided by two men. Neither one are angels. Neither one are malach. They are two men. The two men are Gabriel, who is actually introduced as Gabor before we're even told that his name is Gabriel. Gabor means he's a really strong, competent man who is a fighter. And Gabriel means God's most courageous and competent man. That's David.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which means in the 9th chapter, when he announces that he, as the Messiah, is going to do these things, he's speaking of himself. Which means that Christianity is destroyed by the realization that the text of Daniel itself proves that Gabriel is a man, and that man is David. The other fellow, his name is Michael, and Michael is not an archangel. Michael is a hell of a guy, though. Leah would recommend him.
Really great guy.
He is a really good guy.
My guy.
Yeah, Michael is Leah's guy.
My Palmoni.
Well, we're going to learn about Palmonis in a bit. Yeah, that was a cheap shot by Yahowah on the old Palmoni. We'll find that out more. But Michael is the one who is right about God. Mm-hmm. And at this point, there's only one fellow that's written 35 books called Yada Yahowah, who is right about who Yahowah is, and also who Gabriel is.
It also means one who is in the council of God.
Well, the Tsar, he is also introduced as a Tsar, which means that he is in the council of the king. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have these two guys, and there's a third guy around that we can deduce from what we learn in Malachi, is Elia. And so this is a confab with those three guys. So you got two of them that are coming forward in time to have this confab in Babylon with Daniel, who serves as not a prophet but as a scribe, and one who goes back in time to have this powwow. And collectively, they're explaining not just what's going to happen, but what they're going to do, because they all play leading roles in what's going to happen during these events. And one of the things that we have come to know is how it is on Towrah, which is the most active day of all of Yahowah's Moed. It is by far the most power-packed days. In fact, it is such a day that I don't even think it can be done in a day. I think it actually needs to play out in 3 days because there's just so much going on with Towrah. But Towrah is the end of all things that have been troubling to Jews. It is when the Jews are returned to Judea or Yahud, to Jerusalem, and to a relationship with Yahowah. It is from all around the world. God said he's going to accomplish that on Towrah. It is the day that the mortal remnant of Israel is purged of their religious guilt, which is another one of the statements that it has to be part of all of this. And that it is the day when Yahowah rids the world of all of those who come against his people. He incinerates them all. And it's the day that he transforms the earth back into the conditions found in Eden. So it is the terminus date of all of this. It is a Shabbat. It will occur to the celestial excitement of a full solar eclipse. And it is the 24th of September of 2033, which means that when we were given the 1,290 days to the declaration that where Trump is going to say, I'm a god. And that is on the Ides of March. And then we get another date that's 45 days longer than that, which tells us the day he's going to arrive and assert his supreme political authority. We know all of those dates because they were given to us precisely. And so now the question is, and this is what we're going to pursue, were we given the same amount of precision pursuant to the beginning of this time of Israel's troubles and world troubles. And is that date also the Shavuot harvest? So that is what we're pursuing here. And the 4 people that are part of this program, 5 people that are part of this program, including the keeper of the cables, have all received the dossier that I wrote based upon my further translations in Daniel 8 that answer that question. All right? So here we go. So as we move deeper into Daniel, we are shown an interesting transition, and that is that right after God describes the rise and fall of Alexander the Great, and I hate to use that term great because he was a real scumbag. I mean, he was a mass murderer. He was a tremendous enslaver of people. He was an egomaniac. He was a drunkard. I mean, he was one of those people who just fell through the seams, where he made a series of horrible decisions, all of which turned out well.
Right.
And you play life over and over and over again. You're going to have dunderheads who just
Get lucky.
roll craps every time. They just get lucky. Alexander was one of those people.
Do you know what he's referred to in the Middle East? What
No.
they call him?
No.
Alexander the Annihilator.
Yeah, sure. He was a reprehensible human being. So anyway, God goes and he describes this egotistical man, and he spends a lot of time on him because he is the prototype for the person known as the Antichrist. Murderous, a warrior, a man who claims to be God, a person who claims to have supreme authority over the earth. And as we found in the prior people that Satan has possessed to create religions like Paul and Muhammad, is a dunderhead. And Alexander was also a dunderhead. I don't give a hoot that he was educated when he was 6 years old or 10 years old by Aristotle. It didn't take. Almost everything the guy did was stupid. And what he said was stupid. So this is the history, and God tells that history because he wants us to know the prototype for this Torahless individual. And I think it's because that Alexander the Great was the consummate foil upon which we can view the great betrayer of the time of troubles. Now, I say this because the corporeal manifestation of Satan will be devilish, notoriously egotistical, infamously ruthless, having no empathy for anyone other than himself. And that is the perfect portrait of Alexander. If you were to take Donald Trump's persona, the person that fits it perfectly would be Alexander the Great, when you actually know this man who had no empathy even for his own men, and who presented himself as if he were a god. And everything he said was hypocritical. He is the prototype for the Donald. And so this horrid image of him and his henchmen have been seared into our brains through the testimony, and we'll share that on future shows, that God has presented regarding him, because this is the most ruthless villain to ever prey upon people, is Alexander, and he is the prototype for the one that will prey on Israel. So into our tour from our past to our future, we are confronted with something Yahweh revealed in the midst of his preeminent declaration regarding Satan. That presentation, of course, is found in Yeshayah 14. When compared to what we are about to consider in Daniel 8, it confirms that the goat, as Yahweh referred to Alexander, he just always refers to him as the goat, who drew his last breath in Babylon and died exactly as Yahweh foretold he would. He was the exemplar for Satan's corporeal manifestation of the last days. And this should be known. This was written 200 years before Alexander was born. And this, one of the Daniel scrolls, was one that was used in that most recent survey where they determined that the scrolls are much older than what they previously thought, some 200 to 300 years older. So this scroll, rather than dating to around 85 BCE, actually dates to more around 250 BCE. So this scroll is very close to the copy of the scroll is very close to the time that we're reading about right here. And so he is the exemplar for Satan's corporeal manifestation of the last days. And indeed, this beast took root within the walls of Babylon, of commingling religion and politics. And then this enticed Persia, and it lured in the Greeks, and it was personified in Rome, and it has developed and evolved, metastasized in the Roman Catholic Church, which is exactly the history of the beast that Yahweh has presented. This realization regarding the Torah one is so essential to understanding his nature, his purpose, and identity. We will, in a future program, return to Yashaya Isaiah 14, because it is the preeminent presentation on Satan's desire to be the god of religion. He has no interest ever of being worshipped as Satan. So all these people that think, you're an occultist, Satan worshiper, all this. No, if you know who Satan actually is, the way he's presented by God, his intent is to shed the adversary title. He never wants to be known as Satan.
No.
That's why the religions all demean Satan. The Quran and the New Testament, they demean Satan because Satan wants to shed his satanic adversary title and to be worshipped as the Lord God of religion.
Mm-hmm.
Satan really is the God of Christianity, of Islam, and the Hashem of Judaism. That is the truth, whether or not you like it or not. So the spirit now manifests in this monstrous beast, like Alexander, who served as the role model, exalted himself above the Most High. Also consistent with what we were told in Yashaya, Halal ben Shakar does not fall alone, but takes a considerable number of the heavenly host with him. Similarly, the great betrayer of Israel in the last days will have a cadre of enablers. They are currently called his administration, although they will be part of the Big Ten Conference as we move forward in time. One final note. Ruach spirits in Hebrew are feminine, even though we consider Satan to be masculine.
Yep.
And Satan is one of them. He is a Ruach. He is a cherubim who is typically presented as masculine, even though the term Ruach to represent him is feminine. So when speaking of this wayward spirit, I've chosen to use it rather than she, because of the realization that we're talking about a him represented by a feminine word, which is very common in many languages, including Hebrew.
Yeah.
So, and it says it. So this is the corporeal manifestation of Satan. Was exalted as great as Gadol, well beyond the host of the heavens, or even a lofty army. So it's saying that this corporeal manifestation of Satan is going to be seen as much greater than the host of heaven. But then it was brought down to the earth as part of the host of the spiritual realm. So Hasatan was sent to the earth for a specific purpose, and he brought a full host of demons, of fallen Malak, if you will, with him, along with some of the brightest luminaries and heavenly powers. Now, we're not told what percentage, we're not told how many, I'm not even sure it matters, but there is a significant number of them. And he tread upon them and trampled them as the aggressor among them. In other words, Hasatan, the adversary, Satan,
Is a bully.
is a bully, and he does not treat even those who
Work with.
pretend to support him and brown nose him. He's happy to trounce them. He's exactly like Donald Trump, who only has enemies and future enemies. And those people who are brown nosing him and think that they're on his inner circle, they're just waiting to their time to be future enemies and devoured by him. Now, Satan was apparently the most exalted of the heavenly host, and as such, he was selected and dispatched to earth to serve as the adversary, which is the alternative to God. But he did not come alone, but instead with a unspecified number of Malachim, spiritual beings. These would include some of the best and brightest among the vast array of incorporeal messengers. And in conclusion, it appears that Hasatan was like Trump, and that he did not play well with others. he would be what is called a bully. The reason for all of these insights at this time is because the corporeal manifestation of the adversary has been exalted as the Lord of religion. Alexander was the prototype for his men to be perceived as gods. In fact, one of the reasons that he had the rebellions multiple times is that Alexander demanded that his men worship him as a god, that they come and they bow before him, that they kiss his ring is one of the things that he demanded. And if you showed any hesitance, he not only killed you, he murdered your entire family and anybody that was friends with you, which had a tendency to encourage people to acquiesce. Now, Alexander's name, therefore, is almost always followed by the Great. In this way, the Macedonian tyrant who slaughtered his way to infamy and sought to be worshipped as a god serves as the exemplar of the Antichrist. Now, no mortal man has ever been given autonomy over Yahweh's Shabbat. And therefore, the inference here is that this beast who came down to earth with the Malach was one of them, and likely the cherub in the garden. That serpent is a cherub. Recognizing this, our determination of the identity of the individual who is possessed by Satan is enhanced by realizing that this individual will share many traits in common, not only with Satan, but also with Alexander. And this is one of the many reasons that we will turn eventually to Yeshaya, Isaiah, so we can nail this point home. And when we do, what we're going to find is a reference to Kokab, those considered stars in this time of darkness, the seemingly best and brightest, the most illustrious and empowered. They too will fall and be sent down. Satan will not go quietly along into the night. Most English Bibles, slavishly parodying the familiar phrasing of the King James Version, present the impossible, that this beast waxed so great that his ego brought the stars to earth. Now, one star anywhere near our solar system, along with the one sun we have, would certainly destroy our entire planet. But nonetheless, the King James Version had no problem with the idea that Satan's ego brought actual stars down to earth. What they fail to consider, of course, is that spiritual beings are comprised of light, and we have long used stars as a metaphor to describe the best and brightest among us. They're called stars, after all, the most famous and influential. With this revelation, we know that neither Satan nor the Toraless one operate alone. And as was the case with Alexander and then in Rome, Paul and his church, these beastly blowhards are aided and abetted by demons, both literal and, of course, figurative. Now, before we go back in time to understand what lies before, I'd like to share a couple of additional insights. The reason that Yahweh was described this beast's legacy of institutionalized religion beginning in Babylon, and then explained how it was used to inspire leaders governing empires evolving from Babylon, is so that we might appreciate how Satan expresses himself in the psyche of those who led these nations. The vestige of horrible behavior we chronicled in the life of Alexander and then in Rome demonstrates why they best served to forgo religion and politics, patriotism and militarism. The history of these beasts in the story of civilization, the consequence of man pursuing Satan's agenda, leads to plundering, enslaving, deceiving, and killing. And many, if not most, of the leaders we have chronicled sought to be worshipped as if they were gods. It was exceedingly common. And so their murderous deeds and egocentric ambitions, we find a microcosm of Satan's persona. After all, on the Ides of March, it was JC, Julius Caesar, who managed to claim that he was divine. So with two men in particular, Paul and Muhammad, we come face to face with the characteristics that define the great accuser of men. They both admitted multiple times that they were demon-possessed and that they devoted their lives to advancing Satan's agenda, confusing billions in the process. And the devil's advocates were deceitful, conniving, egomaniacal, manipulative, and they were always sexually perverted. And boy, was Alexander a sexual deviant, as were almost all of the emperors of Rome.
Yes.
As is the
And all of its popes.
yeah, as is the dumpster.
Oh, yeah.
The goat was particularly telling as an exemplar of the beast. He was proclaimed himself the son of Amun, the king of kings and the master of the universe.
Mhm.
Now, that's an ego for you. He was the absolute dictator. A lot of people say, the Greeks invented democracy. Well,
No, it
why
didn't.
did they have nothing but kings, and the kings were tyrants if they were a democracy? You don't have democracy with somebody calling themselves kings of kings and master of the universe, as well as son of Amun. Those who sought to defy his wishes or rebel against his influence, of course, were simply enslaved or exterminated. Death and destruction were his constant companions. His family was particularly conniving, paranoid, and dysfunctional. And in his world, the military, the government, and religion, even caste economic systems, were indistinguishable, inseparable, and imposed. And let's not forget the condescending ego. In modern times, Trump would be his lone rival in imposing narcissism as a relentless psychopath. Just as the previous statement leveraged the past to address the future arrival of the corporeal manifestation of Hasatan during the time of trouble, this too is what follows. Up until a point, the empowered leader of this host of spiritual beings will be exalted and glorified. He will be honored and considered great. So because of him, the constant and enduring will be forcibly lifted up and caused to be raised. Then the sight and establishment of his consecration and sanctification, and also his sanctuary, will be forcibly overthrown and tossed away, compelled to be cast off and hurled into oblivion. This is Daniel 8:11. And I've shared this in a previous program. So many of the words in a Hebrew lexicon, as you fellows and ladies know, like ad, sar, saba, and gadol, can have a positive or negative connotation depending on the context, making that the determining factor. So while I could say that the juxtaposition of ad and sar indicate the rise of the Antichrist figure, that he will be then thwarted by a restoring witness serving the king, I think that this statement, like the previous one about Alexander and his how his empire was divided, I think it's just purely satanic. So I don't think there is a positive implication in the beginning of this. It is the Ruach of Satan that has been Gadol exalted and magnified as the God of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. He is the Lord of the earth, and he is worshipped as Jesus, Hashem, and Allah. And he and his fellow fallen Malach were among the brightest in Shamaim. But their duplicitous role caused everyone else to be pushed down. That's why Trump attacks people all the time. That's why he has to call Obama a traitor. That's why he has to speak of Sleepy Joe and of cackles in a very demeaning term. He has to take world leaders and humble them and persecute them with his words so that by comparison, well, he doesn't look so bad. That's the nature of all this. The only silver lining here is that his glorification was written in the perfect conjugation, telling us that it will come to an end. In this prophetic pronouncement, the first of three statements seems to indicate that Satan's corporeal manifestation will declare that he is a god. So to spare the covenant family from this outrage, once again, we find Yahweh removing his children. And the previous use of ha-tamid, the constant and enduring, were to be sure taken away and removed. This time they are room, which means they are lifted up and raised. This is our Heavenly Father honoring his promise to protect his family on Shabbat, the promise of sevens. The timing is important because this is when the Torahless one is slated to eviscerate Israel, making the nation indefensible by gouging out an Islamic state from Israel's heart. With the third sentence written in this prophecy, we are brought forward in time to Towrah, the day of the herald, when the dreams of the devil and his denizen are squashed. All that they sought to establish with their gaudy and grandiose shrine, as is presented in Ezekiel, to their egos, with bronze man doing all the measuring, will be overthrown and they will be cast off to oblivion. Therefore, God is revealing that the spirit of Satan within the Torahless one will be esteemed by the preponderance of people. To a greater extent than Germans venerated Hitler, he will be glorified and worshipped because he will be perceived as the ultimate warrior and peacemaker, savior and God. His status among men and his acclaim among nations will be unbridled and unrestrained up to the moment that it will not.
I think I threw up in the back of my throat a little.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Disgusting.
It's disgusting. But this is where the world's headed, and it's because of the people we meet when we're on X. It becomes exceedingly clear that this is the case. Well, one of the things I just noticed here is that with Asher banging things around, we got this camera at a nice 45-degree angle.
I noticed there was a new camera.
The shelves are all at a very, very strange angle. So maybe it, when we're doing the work with the cords here, keeper of the cords, but we do have this show at everything at a tilt. So we're kind of falling off of the world here. So once again, it would be inappropriate to extrapolate the extent of that English translations corrupted this testimony, as they render Tamid as the continuation of the offerings and sacrifices that will be taken away. This is not only implies that the sacrifices would have been resumed, which will not be the case, but also our attention is taken away from Yahweh's Mikre, which the Torahless one, along with Christians, Muslims, and Jews, has long disavowed. Well, I think we're getting, you're making some progress on it, but it's, I think you actually have to, Leia's trying to deal with this now. You actually have to loosen it and then retighten it to get it to, oh, you're getting closer. So we are trying to correct the balance of the world here. So we're not, we're not, it's about the angle, Leia. That's pretty close there. Let's just call that a day. All right, thank you. That is better. I don't feel like I'm rolling off a cliff. Now, as an interesting aside, rabbis and pastors alike are all a Twitter over finding and sacrificing red heifers in accordance with the discussion of Bamidbar, Numbers 19. But they don't know that the red heifer is actually a man, or that he willingly offers his life on Towrah to restore the mortal remnant of Yisrael before the return of father and son, Yahweh and Dod. Fact is, they don't know what Towrah represents, much less the Torah from which this prescription for living is made on behalf of the adulterous woman to purge her of her guilt so that she can be betrothed to the returning king, who is Dod, resolving the episode of the waters of Meribah in Numbers 5 and 20. Now, these things don't, when we rely upon the primary definitions of each word that Daniel wrote, this is what we find. And it was exalted as great and magnified in importance, well beyond the host of the heavens, but when it was brought down to the earth as part of the host of the spiritual realm, among some of the brightest luminaries and heavenly powers, and it tread upon them and trampled them as the aggressor among them. And up to a point, the empowered leader of this host of spiritual beings will be exalted and glorified, honored, and considered great. So because of him, the constant and unceasing, who are continuously enduring, will be lifted up and raised. Then the sight the establishment and the implications of what he is consecrating and sanctifying, even his sanctuary, will be forcibly overthrown and tossed away, compelled to be cast off and hurled into oblivion. So much for Measure Man, Bronze Boy, the Copper Khan at the end of Ezekiel, with all of these plans to build this monstrous real estate edifice for naming rights for Satan.
Or as I like to say, F you, Trump.
Goodbye. This known, I'm at a loss to explain why the King James Version, the New American Standard Bible, and the New Living Translation propose that Wah Men Hu Ha Tamid Room somehow conveys by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and it removed the regular sacrifice from him, or by canceling the daily sacrifices offered to him. Renders this a impossible prophecy because they're not going to be reestablished, which means they couldn't be canceled, but that's not what the text says. Now, I don't mean to wear you down with these explanations, but it's important for you to know the truth in this regard. Okay, this goes on. She will give over to the continually persistent and enduring a host of spiritual implements because of the rebellion. And she will cast that which is trustworthy and reliable to the land. And she will respond, acting and engaging, and she will succeed and be empowered and prosper. Now, in this particular case, and we're not going to go into all of the details, but the fact of the matter is, it's every word that is part of this, and I should probably just give you a quick review, that every word that was presented in here, save one. By way of introduction, the verbs gadal exalted, room rise, and shalach overthrown in the previous statement were all scribed in the third person masculine singular, which is he. And all of the preceding nouns, and which is why I reread where we had been, Saba, Shamaim, Eretz, Kokab, Sar, Tamid, Makom, and Makash, all but Eretz, land, is also masculine. Curiously, however, each of the verbs in the statement that I just read, including Nathan give, Shalach cast, and Atah act, as well as Shalach empowered, were all written in third person feminine singular, which is she. Therefore, neither the Tamed, the enduring, nor the Saba, the host, can serve as the feminine subject of these verbs, nor can the Pasha revolt. And this leaves us with an unidentified feminine subject, such as the Ruach spirit, or either Emeth truth, or the Eretz land. And so I have capitalized, she shall give, she shall promote this offering over to and on behalf of the continually persistent and enduring, such that they have a host of spiritual implements because of the rebellion, and that she will cast that which is trustworthy and reliable to the ground. And she, now the land, will respond, acting and engaging, and she will succeed the land and the earth because she will be empowered and prosper. So the conclusion here is that since we transitioned in the previous statement to the good guys, that this is a continuation of this, and this is the Spirit saying, because these people were consistent and persistent and enduring, now the Saba, that currently the good Saba, the host of heaven, these Malach, that have reported to Yahweh all this time, a lot of them are going to be given to the covenant family. And we're going to explain why that is the case. So the covenant family are going to have Malach that serve them and serve with them and work with them and for them. And then at that point, the Spirit, she, will cast that which is trustworthy and reliable to the earth and to the land. And therefore, the earth and the land are going, the people of them are going to respond, and they're going to engage, and they're going to exceed, and they're going to be empowered and prosper. So this is the benefit of what has transpired. So given the choice, I decided to capitalize she, such that she is Yahweh's Ruach spirit, giving the Tamid, enduring a Saba, host of spiritual messengers as a result of the Pisah rebellion that is now being resolved. This makes sense to me for a number of reasons. The covenant family members will be inheriting the responsibility of guiding the mortal remnant of Israel into and through the millennial celebration of Sukkah, and we're going to need the help. Second, there's going to be a countless array of Pisa, defiant and revolting souls that we need to judge, convict, and sentence, and the Malak are perfectly suited to collect the perpetrators, keep their souls restrained, present the evidence against them, carry out the appropriate punishments, and then take them to Sheol. So makes perfect sense to me that they'll be doing this. And third, the covenant's children grow and become ever more like our Father. And it's only right that he trusts us with the Malak as we carry out our responsibilities and we explore the possibilities throughout the universe. Now, while I would have preferred that Daniel chose a verb more in keeping with the process than shalak cast, especially since the object is emet's truth, we are best served when we pursue she as the ruach spirit again, as she, and this is because of the hiphil imperfect, where the truth becomes an extension of herself and into perpetuity. And as we have learned with Yashiya's portrayal of the 7 spirits of Yahweh associated with the Towrah, the Ruach is truth personified. Also, since the Malak are Yahweh's spiritual messengers, it is natural that the Shabbat, host of them, would flood the earth and land with that which is verifiable and true. Now, this makes a point, and it makes sense to perceive then that the Eretz, which is the recipient of the Emeth, will then respond appropriately, making the she associated with Asha, engaging people of the earth to respond appropriately to the truth. This remnant of the land then becomes the subject of Shalak because they were enriched and empowered. Therefore, I think these assessments are fitting because of the transition of Daniel 10, where it was purely demonic, to Daniel 11, which is a blend of good and bad guys, under the scenario that it makes sense for Daniel 11 to be a celebration then of happy ever after. Now, the reason I went into this detail here, looks like we had Kevin dive into the pool. Maybe he's swimming laps at this point. We'll see him come back. But the reason I think all of this is important to get into that kind of detail is that this is really tough sledding. Daniel is written so that it takes every neuron of your brain to function at the highest possible level to make sense of this. That's the way it was written. It was intended to confuse people for 2,600 years until it was time to be known and understood. And so if it was written just very simply in Hebrew, it wouldn't work that way.
Yeah.
So it is complicated for a reason, and you really have to pay attention as to who is speaking and who is the subject, who is the object of each of these verbs, and how they pertain to this period of time. And I'm just telling you that it is by far the most challenging text of all for that very reason to unravel. Now, this known, we must be aware that at the present, Halal ben Shakar, as he is introduced in Yeshaya 14, is in control over a rebellious Shabbat, a host of spiritual beings. And while misled, they will continue to misappropriate and twist Yahweh's Torah, YAHOWAH, in efforts to support Satan's agenda, which is to be worshipped as the god of religion. To appreciate Satan's approach, we must go back in time to consider how he seduced Yahowah, because it's the same ploy that Paul deployed in the Christian New Testament. Rabbis like Akiba and Maimonides have rehashed it as well to author the Talmud. It is the same approach that Yahweh denounced throughout Yeshaya, Isaiah, explaining the consequence to us and the expectation that we would use the resulting insights to avoid these satanic entanglements, such as religion, politics, patriotism, conspiracy, militarism, and the caste system. Now, after Satan misquoted something, Yahweh had conveyed, Yahowah in the case of the Garden of Eden, took the poisonous bait and she ran with it, adding her own interpretations and embellishments. And her intent was to invert reality and to elevate herself as the created, such that both people and Malak were perceived as gods. But why? God's on record as saying, I'm offering you everything we could possibly desire. He has provided us with the means to perfect ourselves and to become immortal. He has promised to adopt us, enriching us, empowering us, enlightening us to the extent that we become infinitely superior to any other man or any god that man has ever made. So why would you want to do this? It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
As the covenant's children, we will inherit everything. Now, Satan, to his credit, has been very good at being bad. And up to this point, relatively few have chosen Yahweh over Satan. It's as if this was a popularity contest, it would be won by a Trumpian landslide. I won by landslide. And that is
beautiful. Land.
Yeah, it was a beautiful landslide. That's likely God's intent. Indeed, the very reason for creating and deploying the serpent in the first place. Yahweh wants a family of intelligent and thoughtful, loyal and rational children, not a religion or an empire. So driving this point home, Satan misleads through Babel, through confounding people by intermixing truth and deception, commingling religion and politics. He prevails through misappropriating, misconstruing, and misquoting the Torah and prophets, twisting and perverting God's message to serve his agenda. And no question about it, the adversary's favorite medium is religion. So in this next pronouncement, gets to be really interesting now. The Echad, which means one, Kadosh, set apart. So the one who is set apart, I think, must be Eliah, who was among Yahweh's two witnesses during the time of trouble. He is asking a man identified as the Palmoni, one who intervenes and delivers salvation in an exceptional way, to address a series of issues. He wants him to explain the duration and the extent of this vision pertaining to the endurance of this devastating and desolating rebellion, particularly as it even prompts the set apart and heavenly host to ponder the implications of worldwide oppression. Therefore, the Palmoni is either Dode or Yada. Only wish it could have been Dode. I would have loved to have teased him about being the Palmoni.
My little Palmoni.
I want to get Yahweh on this one.
I'll put like a little rainbow tattoo on your butt, little like rainbow hair.
Dode and Yada are the only two individuals uniquely prepared to intercede and deliver humankind from guilt and harm's way. They are both confident and judgmental, while Yahweh likes to tease them, I guess. They are their most distinguishing factor is that their sacrifices on Pesach and then with the Palmoni, we're going to find on Towrah, are used by Yahweh in a miraculous way to save his people. And while Dode is obviously the greater between them, he could be the great Palmoni, it is Yada's sacrifice that God uses to resolve this current crisis and this particular rebellion. So here it is. Mm-hmm. Then I chose to listen intently, and I heard Echad Kodash, one who is set apart, one who is special, distinct, prepared, and devoted, speaking, debar, communicating, using words and language. The set apart one asked the Palmoni, the one who intervenes and delivers salvation in an exceptional way, to speak as a restoring witness, to explain the extent and duration of this prophecy pertaining to prophecy to be perceived pertaining to the unrelenting, overall continuance and duration of the destructive and revolting rebellion of deadly and devastating criminal defiance, and of this causing the set apart and the heavenly host to ponder the implications of those trampled by oppression, subjugation, and persecution. Now that's a mouthful right there, and I want to tell you that was better part of a day to render that statement in Daniel 8:13. So just as a quick review here, it is Daniel that it says, I chose to listen intently, and what I heard was the Echad Kodesh, this one who is set apart, which I think is Elia, speaking, and the set apart one, Elia, asked the Palmoni, which would be Yada, the one who intervenes and delivers salvation in an exceptional way at this time. It is from Palmoni is one who is uniquely prepared to intercede and to save, in whom we can be confident in considering. It is from Pa'al to intervene and intercede judgmentally, from Palah to be distinct, separated, and distinguished, as well as set apart. Palet, which is to safely deliver and save. Pelah, in a uniquely exceptional and even miraculous way. Mah, pondering the implications of and own of all things pertaining to this. So what do you think about those letters there, Captain Kirk? That is your specialty.
Well, yeah, I got everything that you have, or just about everything you have, with a quick study on the pronoun as well as the verb. And on the verb, on the pronoun, is really, that's 6422 if anybody wants to look it up. Let me tell you what the letters I think mean without, and I don't think I'm wrong here. You have it's going to be a pei, lam, mem, wa, nun, and yod.
Yes.
So if you put them together, reading right to left, I would say that it's using words that he leads and shepherds. This guy who cleans with water. He increases to increase the children of Yah. That's the Wa Nun, and also leads. Forgive me. He increases the children in wisdom as well as in powers of Yah's children. I think I can get all if I.
Yeah, there it is. So the pei was drawn in the form of a mouth, so it means that this person is prolific with words. They are verbose, in other words. The lamed means that they work as a shepherd to lead the flock.
Yes.
The mem means two things. One is or three things. They're life-giving, because it's depicted as water. They're life-giving. They're cleansing, which is associated both with the Towrah sacrifice of the Adam Parah. And they are a goy. My wife got that one as well. The Jew knows a goy when she sees one. And the wa means to increase. The nun is can convey two things, both of which are related. It is a seed which takes root and grows. So this person cultivates a harvest and is productive. And it's also a child that is born into the family. And
both are signs of production,
right? And Yod is a hand reaching out and down. It's so that this person speaks as a shepherd, as a Gentile who is cleansing and life-giving, increasing the family for the very hand of God.
Yes. There was an interesting little thing about Palau, though. It was the pei, lam, and the hay. The difference there would be the words in the leadership, or the shepherding leads to the upright one standing in awe of Yah and walking along the path. But the one that I found that was really kind of interesting is when they use the same word in Psalm 17:7, is he puts on a wonderful show.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, the reason that's a wow is because Towrah is the greatest show on earth. It is, obviously, when you understand all the things that are taking place.
Bailey, baby.
Baby, it's the greatest show on earth is Towrah. So the set apart one asked, that would be Elia, asked the Palmoni, this one who intervenes and delivers salvation in an exceptional, even miraculous way,
My Palmoni.
to speak as a restoring witness to explain the extent and duration of this prophecy to be perceived pertaining to the unrelenting overall continuance and duration of the destructive and revolting rebellion of deadly and devastating criminal defiance.
My Palmoni on Towrah. Get your tickets now.
Yes. This is causing the set apart and the heavenly host to ponder the implications of those trampled by oppression, subjugation, and persecution. So what has been set up here, humor aside, is that this is a very different set of circumstances than were used previously for us to go backward in time to assess a date that, for example, the Torahless one's going to arrive January 29th, 2030, that the Torahless one is going to declare himself as a god, the Ides of March 15th, 2030, or that the two witnesses are going to arrive Passover the 18th of April of 2030. This is now the whole Shabbat. This is the time of trouble from the beginning to the end. Correct?
Yeah. How long's it going to
The
last?
whole world's being subjugated. This is the entire duration of this awful defiance, this revolting rebellion, this deadly and destructive criminal enterprise. This is the entire thing. All right. So the realization is that the Palmoni, one who intervenes and delivers salvation in an exceptional way, is being addressed by a fellow witness, and he is therefore Yada, not Dode. And he is being asked to quantify the duration and extent of the period that the unrelenting will endure this revolting devastation so horrendous that it causes the set apart and the heavenly host in heaven to look down and say, my God, this is just, the implications of this persecution are just unfathomable, what's happening to the earth. So before we ponder the Palmoni's answer, let's clear up some misconceptions.
Give it up, Palmoni.
Yeah, there we go. Giddy up. As we have come to, I'd hate to screw up my own line. And since I am the Palmoni here, and not had the nerve to
oh, no, God didn't. That was Leah.
To tease me with this. I don't want to screw this up. I do want to get this right. It's one thing to be called a Palmoni. It's another thing to mess it up, right? So yeah, you don't want to be a defective Palmoni. I think that'd be even worse. So as we come to expect, my translation here differs substantially from those found in English Bibles. Most of them fail to distinguish between Echad Kodesh, one set apart, and the Palmoni, which, as we know from exploring every possible route and the letters themselves, distinguishes the one singular and specific individual who is uniquely set apart to intervene and save, doing so in a miraculous way. Speaking of the Adam of Parah in this case. Unwilling to do the same research, religious publications are wont to infer that a saint was overheard chatting with another saint when there are no saints, and one phrase is clearly distinct from the other. Also troubling, once again, the preponderance of English Bibles have rendered Ha Tamed as either the daily sacrifice or the regular sacrifice, even though Tamed doesn't speak of daily, regular, or sacrifice.
Which just tells you one thing. They just make shit up as they go along.
They do. Therefore, I have chosen to render Tamed in accordance with its full and complete etymology. It's being asked, how long is this going to last? Additionally, there is a material difference between the way the King James Version, the New American Standard Version, the New Living Translation, and the JPS render Kadosh. While the word in its various forms, and it is based on the verbal root kadash, and because kadash is the verb, kadosh is the noun, it means to be set apart, to be separated, to be uncommon, to be distinct. and yet theologians prefer to convey it using religious terms such as holy, saints, or sanctuary. Now, this is a critical mistake because there are very few things as important to our relationship with God than understanding the implications of Kodesh, set apart. When we are Kodesh, we are separated from the norm, which means that we are not religious, political, or conspiratorial. We are Kodesh, separated from mankind's musings and then set apart unto Yahweh, special and distinct to him. Further, when this instructive term is mischaracterized, becoming religious, it is turned into a false prophecy. There will be no restored sanctuary to give over to the host, tossing the faithful into the quicksand of religious toxicity. So if we want to know the truth and to be counted among the enduring and the set apart, we need to know what the words of God actually mean. Now, these things known, Elia wants his fellow witness to explain to those being tormented by this appalling cast of characters to realize that their ordeal will be resolved. And since we jumped ahead and considered Dod's answer as it is presented in the 12th chapter of Daniel, we recognize that the time of trouble either commences on Shabbat, which would be May 22nd, 2026, making this horrid experience last 7 years and 4 months, or June 11th, 2027, such that it is 6 years and 3.5 months long. It concludes in both cases on Towrah, September 24th, 2033, when the mortal remnant of Israel will return and be purged. At that time, we discovered that the Torahless one will arrive to pursue his political objectives on January 29th, 2030, and that he will announce his religious decree on March 15th, 45 days later. 33 days after that, the two witnesses will arrive on April 18th, 2030, that being Passover. Okay, so this time, however, the question was framed differently. This is describing the entire duration of the time of trouble, because the Palmoni, one who intervenes and delivers salvation in an exceptional, miraculous way, as an restoring witness, has been tasked with the question to quantify and explain the extent and duration of this prophecy to be properly perceived and intelligently beheld, pertaining to the unrelenting overall continuance and duration of the destructive and revolting religious rebellion, of deadly and devastating political and criminal defiance, which is so offensive and contrarian, and of this causing the set apart and the heavenly host to ponder the implications of those trampled by oppression, subjugation, and persecution. Therefore, this would be the duration of the time of trouble, from the horrendous beginning to the glorious conclusion. And based upon Yeshaya's declaration in the 17th chapter of Isaiah, it must commence upon the fulfillment of Shabbat. So now, based upon the answer in the next statement, we know which promise of the Shabbat is the one that will begin the time of trouble. Guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Giddy up.
Okay, this is going to reveal the last possible date that the so-called two-state solution can be imposed on Israel. This narrowing of the nation at the waist between Gaza and what is errantly referred to as the occupied territories of the West Bank will make Israel vulnerable and indefensible. By the way, if the West Bank is occupied territories, then it's occupied by the people who don't belong there, which would be the Muslims. The Jews don't live where the Muslims live. Jew can't live where Muslims live because Muslims kill them. So while the devil's advocate will rise to international prominence based upon his role in brokering this deal, it will immediately trigger war, with millions of combatants flooding into what remains of Israel, trampling God's land and people underfoot. The intent of this Marxist Muslim coalition will be to turn the two-state solution into the final solution of what they view as the Jewish problem. So this now is the answer we have been waiting for. And he said to me, this is the Palmoni speaking, for the duration of 2,300 ensuing periods of darkness in the evening, with the dawn of a new day, of enlightenment to reflect the contemplative, to be contemplative in the morning, then the set apart will be vindicated as right. All right, the day to be vindicated as right, Towrah. Therefore, we have 2,300 days. This was written as Ephlim wa Shalosh Mia. 2,300 evenings and mornings. These will be, of course, exceptionally long days and nights, the worst in Israel's history of abuse and persecution. A swarm of Arabs, which is Arab evening, and other Noxus, that's also Arab, Muslims, will invade Israel, and they will terrorize God's people. It actually uses the word for noxious Muslims and Arabs. And they're going to terrorize God's people prior to the dawn of a new day, where enlightenment and contemplation will finally prevail. Bloody sunsets will become glorious sunrises. By counting mornings and evenings, we are alerted to the fact that the opening and closing Moedim, this representing this time of trouble, Shabbat and Towrah, comprise full days, and they will unfold on that schedule wherever you might live. This being so, the full duration of time of Israel's testing at 2,300 days represents 6 years, which is the number of man. 3 months, which is the number of bimillennial epochs. Garden to Abraham, Abraham to the fulfillment of Passover in 33 CE, and from the fulfillment of Passover in year 4000 Yah to Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah in 2033, year 6000 Yah. There's 3 of them. And 2 weeks, the number of the witnesses for the beginning and ending to Moedim. And 4 days, representing the sequence of 40 Yobel that all of this time plays out over. That's a lot to load into a number, but that's what we get from it. Now, I've done the math, and I will share with that the results of it now. Working backwards from Towrah on the 24th of September, 2033, we must include 267 days in 2033, which is the year leading up to it. The intervening years of 2028, 2029, 2030, 31, and 32 include 2 leap days, which adds up to another 1,827 sunrises and sunsets. An additional 204 days brings us to Shabbat, which is the Shabbat of June 11th, 2027. At 1,298 days, this is 2 days, or 1,000th of a difference, shy of the 1,300. Therefore, with the references to mornings and evenings, we have 4 options to account for this residual 48 hours. First, a full rotation of our planet, making the reference to sunrises and sunsets applicable to everyone around the globe, plays out over 24 hours, does it not? And since the commencement and conclusion are worldwide events affecting everyone on Earth, we have a perfectly viable explanation for the additional 48 hours, such that everyone can participate on their time. Second, there is so much going on in Towrah that I would not be surprised if it played out over 3 days. On Friday evening, we will celebrate the fulfillment of the final ingathering, a gleaning of olives from the uppermost and lower branches, which have been cut away. And since this will likely occur at sunset at the beginning of the day of the herald, it means that the black, white, and dappled spiritual chariots will begin their worldwide journey at this time to collect and to reject Israelites while assessing Goyim by attitude and aptitude, bringing the anti-religious and the apolitical to Jerusalem. That's a big job. The earth is
That
large.
may take a little while.
Once there, the recently returned will not only have to be properly positioned to view the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, we must also make room for the survivors who have been in Jerusalem all the while. Both groups will have to be arranged to benefit from the cleansing waters without being singed by the Syrian flames. Not only will this be the greatest show on earth, there are some other logistics which have to be resolved. For example, the remaining religious and defiantly political among the surviving remnant in Jerusalem must be removed and discarded. Then Elia must serve as the master of ceremonies to explain what everyone is witnessing, in addition to preparing the audience to benefit from what will be occurring when Yahweh lights the fires and releases the water under the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah. All the while, every assailant who came to plunder, rape, abduct, and kill Jews must be eliminated, not only in Jerusalem, but throughout Israel. They will be incinerated along with the remaining overtly political and religious worldwide.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, okay.
Whoop,
And if that were not enough,
Party
Yahweh will
time.
be restoring Yehudah and then the planet to the conditions experienced during Eden, which will require bearing the political, religious, and military residue while terraforming the earth. And even then, the mission of Towrah isn't complete, because the witnesses and the covenant family will be immediately put to work to educate the purged and restored remnant such that they are prepared for Dod's return. And if this all plays out over the most active 48 hours in our planet's history, then we will have 8 days remaining to prepare for the homecoming and the wedding on Kippurim. And I don't think there's any woman in the world that says you can prepare a wedding of that consequence in 8 days.
No,
but that's how much time you'd have left. And 8 just happens to be
Eternity.
symbolic of eternity.
I still want to put in a complaint. 8
Okay.
days to put together a wedding. Not very well.
Third, should the imposition of the Islamic State that is gouged out of the heart of Israel occur in the year prior to Shabuah in 2027, say on Shabuah in 2026, then the brutal siege foretold as Oscar 2.0 and Yoel and Yashaya may commence on June 9th, 2 days prior to this in 2027. And fourth, this timeline was offered when a year was comprised of 1229.5 lunar day months, which resulted in a 354 to 360 day year. This pronouncement was 5 centuries before the Julian calendar and 2,200 years prior to the Gregorian calendar that I use for these calculations. Therefore, to be accurate within 40 hours, 2,500 years in advance, and through 3 calendar iterations, that's pretty spectacular.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Therefore, with the minuscule difference between 1,298 versus 1,300 days explained and resolved by any one or a combination of the preceding, we are afforded two options regarding the timing of the Shavuot harvest. It will either occur on May 22nd, 2026, which is the realization that the time of trouble then begins the following year. So the Shavuot has to take place a year before the time of trouble begins. I don't think that's the case. Or it will serve as the beginning of a 2,300 day period of anguish for Israel and the world. Now, if the former, the flood of Islamic terrorists described in Yeshaya and Yoel, will commence a year after the harvest. If the latter, it is a simultaneous event occurring with exacting prophetic documentation. Now, since we have received very specific pronouncements from Gabriel, Michael, and now the Pomoni, as one of the witnesses regarding the arrival of Satan's corporeal manifestation, of his pronouncement that he is God, and of the day the witnesses begin their mission against him, there is no reason for us to treat this documentation any differently. Further, when we consider the specificity of Gabriel's attestation of the day he would arrive in Jerusalem to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Makorim, which is presented in the 9th chapter, that being in 33 CE, there is every reason to respect the accuracy of these numbers. Further, while we can disagree on the conclusions, I am expecting the Shavuot Katsir to occur on the 11th of June in 2027. And personally, I'm thrilled to have more time to accomplish this mission as a result.
All of Team YAHOWAH is thrilled, I think.
I think we're all delighted. I know that's the first thing you told me, Kirk. I asked you if you've read through this, what are your conclusions? And your first sentence is, I'm thrilled that we have more time.
Yes.
What do you think there, Kevin? Enough time to get YouTube up and roaring?
Right. Well, absolutely. I mean, more time is always better. I mean, the more allowed to come in, more time for us to perfect our craft and get better at what we do. So absolutely.
I remember after pulling Leah out of her garden, and I was rather flushed when I first figured this out, and I said, we got to talk. That Leah's response was, so that's good news. Let's go back to work. And and when I told Rich, I said, okay, Rich has uprooted his life and moved here, and now he's subjected himself to another year in our company. What is Rich going to say about all of this? And Rich just smiled and said, man, I'm delighted. This is really good.
Got more time.
More time, man.
It's
more
everything
time.
everybody wanted.
Yeah, that's what if you are devoted to YAHOWAH, if you care about what God wants, if you love our King, that everybody that is in that group wants the maximum amount of time that we can have to accomplish this mission and to do it as well as it can be done. And so even though when we leave, we are increased 4 dimensions beyond where we are. We inherit the universe. We go to be with God himself, which is a lovely improvement from where we are now.
Oh, yeah.
We would all postpone that gratification to have the opportunity to serve in the trenches longer.
Yes.
Because what we do now can never be replicated.
Right.
And we have eternity to celebrate.
We got one shot.
This is our one shot, and then we have eternity to celebrate it. And the more we accomplish, the more we are representative of those who stick with it and perform for YAHOWAH and for our King, the better. Look at even Wookiee is smiling. He's saying, yeah, man, I'm in it. I'm in. This is good news. Well, since there is an additional insight provided by Gabriel regarding this time, I'd like to jump ahead and consider it now, because these are some interesting insights in this regard. The many promises associated with Shavuot and the Shabbat. This is Gabriel Dode speaking to us, along with the vows pertaining to the things 7 represents, even 7 sevens, Shabuim, Shabaim, are determined and decreed on behalf of your people, the extended family, and upon your set-apart city and its distinctly uncommon inhabitants, to bring an end to religious rebellion, eliminating the revolting communal defiance and contrarian views. Pasha here, so this is the same thing. He's talking about bringing all of this to an end. To affix the signature which seals up the guilt associated with having missed the way, precluding being wrong again. Now he's going and he's speaking about what he himself is going to do on Pesach. To provide reconciliation for religious error, purging the perverse corruptions and twisted perversions. Both Dode and Yada contribute in this case. To arrive with and to bring that which is eternally right, always correct, forever accurate and honest, thereby attaining everlasting deliverance and vindication, which now that is a Towrah event. To provide a personal seal and signature to revelation, confirming and completing these communications, and to prophecy, while anointing the most set apart. Therefore, know and gain insights to understand that from the going forth of the word to return and restore, rebuilding Jerusalem, until the restoring testimony and the eternal witness of the Son of the Sovereign, who is conspicuously making this known, and who is providing the leadership and counsel as the Messiah, the anointed Messiah, are 7 sevens, and thus 7 promises and fulfilled vows. Therefore, in 62 weeks, she will be restored, and she will be rebuilt to establish and fortify the way, to grow and expand by being diligent and decisive in a troubled time of oppression. Daniel 9:25. Then after the 62 weeks, the anointed Messiah will be cut off and separated, but not for himself. And therefore he, as an exceedingly influential and self-aggrandizing and overbearing person, will vault himself into prominence by arrogantly confirming and imposing a treaty, a covenant agreement, and arrangement with a great many, including plenty of rabbis, the preponderance of people, especially the elitists, for 1 week, based upon a single promise during a particular Shavuot. Wow. Daniel 9:27, that affirms that Shavuot is the time of the imposition of the two-state solution, does it not?
Yes.
Now, it does not say that it has to be this Shavuot of the beginning of the time of troubles.
No.
So it could be the Shavuot on 22 May of 2026. But it says that this event is tied to Shavuot absolutely, unequivocally. And that the person who is the primary advocate of this solution, with many others collaborating with him, is the Torahless one known as the Antichrist.
Known as Donald Trump.
Known as Donald Trump. That is correct.
The dumpster.
Then it says, and halfway through the week, he will stop. Now, halfway through the week. Now, this is kind of an interesting thing, because if the two-state dissolution is on the 22nd of May 2026, then you have a week that would be 7 years and 4 months from that point. While that still leaves us with the harvest on and the beginning of the time of troubles on June 11th of 2027. So there is no conflict at all between the time should this be the case, and should that be the case, it puts us, something that Kevin, you said at the beginning of this, before the show even began, if in fact we get to do as this suggests, have the benefit of the two-state dissolution of Israel that is spoken of so eloquently also by Yeshaya Isaiah in the 17th chapter, also associating it with Shavuot. If that occurs 22 May of 2026, as we have anticipated, and then we have a full year from that point to continue to work before the time of trouble and this Al-Aqsa flood 2.0 occurs, boy, what an advantage we're going to have in terms of the credibility of predicting that, which is what we're doing.
Right.
So I think I think what this is doing is opening up that possibility for us. So it says halfway through the week, he will stop the observance of the Shabbat, and he will seek to forestall the benefit of the sacrifice, which has been freely offered as a gift. So in addition to saying, I'm God, that the gift that has been offered, which is Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim by Dode, that's the very thing he was talking about fulfilling. This Torahless one, the Donald Trump, is going to say, nope, you cannot celebrate Passover the way it was intended. I'm moving it to a Shura day.
Shura day, yeah.
So that's what he's speaking of here. The most extreme aspect of this vile and abhorrent action of repulsive religious idolatry will devastate and desolate. It will incapacitate up to the very end, bringing destruction and annihilation along with the conclusion of the restoring witness. Going to go all the way to Towrah, the day of the witness. And it will occur quickly and decisively with determination and decrees, profusely poured out upon the deserted, desolated, and destroyed, who are astonished and stupefied, and who will perish because they are too stunned to respond. Daniel 9:27. Well, that certainly affirms everything that we have said thus far, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
What a beautiful way to put a bow on it. Thank you, Dode. So this statement by Dode as Gabriel serves as an absolute affirmation of Shavuot as the starting point of the time of trouble and as the point that the two-state solution will be imposed. But it also speaks of the great abomination occurring halfway through the week. And that just cannot be precise. That is a general term, because whether it's 7 years and 4 months or it's 6 years, 3.5 months, we know that it's actually 3.5 years from the end, but it can't be 3.5 years then from the beginning with those two times that we have. So this is a general term where 2,300 days, that's about as specific as it gets, right? So it's a general term here, speaking of the week. And therefore, both dates remain in play, and perhaps for different purposes, with the June 11th fulfillment of Shavuot being the one more likely to fit the harvest and the precise precision of 2,300 days versus a halfway time during a week. Now, digging a little deeper, the Palmoni not only stated that the time of trouble would last 2,300 days, he did not mention, however, Shavuot, just as Gabriel didn't mention Towrah as his concluding date, but he did mention Shavuot. So we're required to do our own reconnaissance. And for that, we should turn to my buddy, Yeshaya. And I think we have just enough time to cover this. 15 minutes left for our 2-hour family hour.
We got a whole nother year. What are you talking about? Just enough time.
There we go. You're right.
Plenty of time.
Yeah.
Giddy up, my Palmoni.
Yeah, my Palmoni. I'm going to be ridden with that Palmoni thing for the next year or two. Well, how could Yahowah do that to him? First, he calls me a daggone red heifer, a girly cow.
called you a shoot.
He just called you Palmoni.
And now
I called you my
and
little
now-
Palmoni.
and now a little Palmoni. You have to have a sense of humor if you're going to work with Yah.
That's right.
But part of the joy of the whole process, though, is God doesn't even take himself all that seriously. I mean, God pokes fun at himself. And he is so daggone approachable and so funny that, you know, if you're going to spend time with him, you're going to recognize there's a reason that God picked Elia, because he's sarcastic as heck. And so is God.
You know why he picked Elia?
What's
Not
that?
just because he's sarcastic.
Because he's brilliant.
He says what others don't dare say.
No, he does. Yeah. Well, there are a few people that will say it too. His Palmoni. And it will actually come to pass in that day that the size of Israel will be decreased to the point of no longer being sustainable. Then the most important place at the midsection of his body will be lean, shrinking in size, sacrificed in a counterproductive and unsustainable manner as part of the hidden agenda of disease dignitaries. Isaiah 17:4. And it will become like the gathering in and receiving of a harvest at the proper time toward the end of what must be cut short for the extent of man's provocation and anger, reaping the standing grain from the chaff in season. Standing grain that is reaped is Shabuah. Cutting it away so as to remove it from a vexing time of grief, thereby establishing and validating the prominent and mature grain, which is the very word for the wheat's harvest. Also, his Zeroah, the one who sows and cultivates the seeds, will produce this harvest. Palmoni also has the nun in it that speaks of this very factor. And it shall be as one would conduct a gleaning, a secondary harvest of first fruits in the valley of Raphaim, in the midst of those destined to die who were too set in their ways and too apathetic to exert the effort required to prevail. We're now talking about Teruah. In him, Jacob and Yisrael, as well as the covenant, there will be those souls who will be spared and survive, in addition to the physical bodies of those who will be left behind. Gleanings of those purposefully left behind on the vine and in going around at the right time of year to remove from a threatening and dangerous situation, encompassing and striking them with a branch as a means of harvesting an olive tree. There will be 2 or 3 ripe olives at the uppermost branch, Yehudim, and 4 or 5 on the fruitful and productive branches which were separated and cut away. Israelites, prophetically declares Yahweh, the God of Yisrael. 17:6. So we're now given the starting date and the ending date, Shabuah and Teruah, and a direct correlation, again, for a second time, of the treaty that thins Israel at the waist, making the country indefensible, occurring on Shabuah. So, specific. Now, also, this is an announcement and a warning to everyone who thirsts. Choose to walk towards the water. The Mem in Palmoni, toward the source of the cleansing and life. And then let the one who wants to enjoy the benefits of the relationship do so without cost. We don't charge for anything, because the path to walk to get the most enjoyment out of life does not require anybody to pay anything. Everything we have to offer, including these 35 books, are free in their entirety. Go to YAHOWAH.com. You have been given the opportunity to go about acquiring food, being nourished, choosing to procure and obtain which is needed to be nourished, and also wine without any money and milk without remuneration and compensation. God used these because the rabbis charge a fortune for their blessing to make them kosher. So please explain, why do you spend continually paying out money for that which is not actually nourishing, such that your labor is not satisfying and produces nothing of lasting value? Why are you rabbinic? Why are you into Judaism with all of its rules? It's where you're giving up your money for nothing, is what
Do you
God
know
is
how much?
asking.
Do you know how much it costs to kosherize a kitchen?
Oh, it's a fortune. What is the?
Just to bless the pots and pans.
Oh, I want to bless pot and pans.
They $300 up to $5,000 to kosherize your kitchen.
Sweetheart, I'll bless your pans for
That's right.
a good meal.
What a racket!
What a racket!
What a racket!
Listen diligently to me and be nourished by that which is good, by that which is useful and beneficial, productive and valuable, pleasurable and enjoyable, with these being the most desirable and beneficial options for your soul. Isaiah 55:2. Incline your ear, doing so of your own volition, and choose to walk to me. Decide to actually listen so that your soul might continue to exist. Then I will cut you into establishing for you the everlasting Bareth covenant, which was affirmed and verified with unremitting love and unfailing devotion by Dode.
Uncle Dode.
By Dode. Yahowah, Isaiah 53. He is our King. He is our Savior. He is the Messiah and Son of God. Now presently, therefore, the Ed, this enduring witness with restoring testimony regarding the means to return, who will be providing evidence regarding eternity for as long as time permits, which we now got a reprieve on time, to people of every ethnicity, culture, and those being gathered, the community being brought together and assembled for this reason, I will bestow, offering him as a gift, bringing him forward at this time and devoting him to this purpose. That's your little Palmoni. As an authorized counterpart and a prince publicly promoting the truth, as a conspicuous messenger announcing what needs to be said and known, as the leader of the royal family, and as an instructor and teacher providing direction, who is appointed or ordained and in charge, whose authority should not be questioned, for an archaic and misled world of people from every ethnicity and culture who are now gathered for a common cause. Isaiah 55:4.
So it's settled. The little private thing between you and I, that I'm your gift, and I said, no, you're my gift.
Oh no, we're not. No, you're still my gift. Therefore, presently, that's our ongoing argument all the time. I said that YAHOWAH gave Leah to me as a gift, best gift ever. Goes you back to the garden where Adam said, "Wowza, this is the best gift ever." So I'm still convinced that that is the case. She's not going to convince me otherwise. Therefore, presently, a lone goy, a non-Israelite, whom you do not know as Yada, and of whom you have consistently failed to recognize or appreciate, who you should read and recite, welcome and greet. In addition, this lone goy, who is not understood or respected by you as Yada, and who possesses information you fail to comprehend, will be quickly brought to you and will waste no time in his intense and consistent focus on you as he pursues you on behalf of YAHOWAH, your God, and the set apart one of Yisrael. That is our mission. We are pursuing you.
Can we stick a pin in that?
For indeed, he is reaffirming your status. He is lifting you up by shaking the tree to knock off the fruit so that you can be gleaned, preparing you for the harvest by recognizing and respecting your value. Yahowah, Isaiah 55:5.
So, Yahud, recognize this. There isn't a single goy out there who is not wasting your time with the absolute truth or giving you such a wonderful gift. And unrecognized, you spit in his face. You refuse to listen. It will be on your undoing. Listen now while you still have time.
Leah, Israel and your Yehud have spit in the face of God's witnesses and prophets, and in God's
For a
face
very long
himself
time. Mhm.
for a very long time, 3,450 years. So it is common territory to be mocked and spit at and not appreciated for reaching out, trying to uplift God's people. Everyone that the Israelites have spit upon, who have renounced, who have told to go away, who have mocked, have been engaged in the process of lifting them up, of recognizing that they have value, of reaffirming your status with God, of shaking the tree to knock off the fruit so that you can be gleaned, of preparing you for the harvest. That is what we're doing. And your thanks is to kick sand in our face. And you did
no,
it.
they'd rather wrap their arms around the devil himself.
They would. And the choice between Yahowah and Trump, you're picking Trump.
That's right.
And the choice between religion and relationship, you're picking religion.
Dumb
And
choice.
the choice between what God is offering you through this individual, this Nakri, this Choder, and Netanyahu, you're going to choose Netanyahu. Very few of you are going to capitalize on this opportunity.
If Yahweh told them it was day, they would say it was night.
Yes. And you're hearing this from this individual because there wasn't a single one of you who was willing to listen to Yahweh and act in this role. And matter of fact, once you know what the role is and everything God wants you to do, there's not a single one of you that wants it. And so the only way God could find somebody to do this is go outside the family. And he found a guy that was willing to do it. He has a guy. He found a guy that was willing to do it. And here we are doing it.
That's right. So get over your hatred of Goy now.
Yeah, God didn't say hate the Goy.
No.
He didn't say
that's purely religion.
No, what he said is don't embrace the ways, the religious and political ways of the Goy, and that's what you did. You embraced their political and their religious ways, and then you demeaned the people. That's the opposite of what God told you to do. It's kind of like when God said, Shama Yisrael. Yahweh is your God. Yahweh is one. And rather than Shama listening, you yabber at him. And then you changed his name from Yahweh to Adonai. You got it all screwed up.
Ass backwards.
Now, in this case, the reference to standing grain, it depicts Shabuah, while the gleaning of olives speaks of Teruah. And so by recognizing these final Moedim at the commencement and conclusion of the time of trouble, we have established the bookends of this fateful time. Everything is set into motion. Those who survive following the fulfillment of Shabuah will witness the rise of Satan to international prominence with the two-state solution, the beginning of the time of Yaakov's troubles, a flooding of Islamic jihadists into the land and the ensuing terror, the return of the witnesses, the great abomination, where all things Kodesh set apart and important to Yahweh are replaced with Satan's preferences as he announces that he is a God.
Got it.
Got it?
Nice job, my little Palmoni.
Anything that you would like to add about going to mock the Palmoni while he's here?
Not following that, no.
The wife can get by with such things and just receive a smile and return.
My little box can get just ripped off.
Yeah. Well, the wonderful thing about all of this is that when you recognize this is the most difficult job in the universe, I think I've shared this job is within a gnat's eyelash of being impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Yahweh tried, didn't get it done. Moshe tried, didn't get it done. Dode tried, it's too much for him too.
The prophets
and
tried.
So there wasn't a single prophet that prevailed. Yeah. And so now with the time running out, God says, this is my guy. I got a guy. This is my guy. He's going to do this. And this time we're going to prevail. Now, he did stack the deck. He gave me the 7 spirits of Yahweh. and that's a lot to go on. But
And
in the midst of all of this responsibility and pressure, would you just say, oh my God, could you make this just like a little bit easier, please? And maybe a little less conspicuous, because, you know, the more conspicuous you make this, the more prophecies you have about it, the more vulnerable I become. So can you tamp it down a little bit? But Yahweh responds.
No, that's the recalcitrance of the people.
Yeah, but Yahweh responds.
They need to heap upon because they don't get it.
Yeah.
And you could tell them over and over about Yahweh's name, and they'll do the same thing that they do to me, they'll do to you.
Yeah, it's just like when I went to Yahweh after 10:7, and I said, I understand that Prophet of Doom is the answer, but Prophet of Doom I know needs a rewrite. I knew only 1% of what I know now when I wrote that book. But oh my God, you don't want me to go back to that, please, because that was hell. Yep. Rewriting that book, it was already 1,000 pages. And so I asked God, do I have to go do that? And he says, I have taken care of you, now take care of my people. He has a way of just setting in that little needle and twisting it, and you say, okay, I get the point. We're going to be rewriting Prophet of Doom, which became the 5 volumes of goddamn religion. And all the way through, Yahweh has a way of making it fun. When Leah and I were sitting there prior to a show, and we were talking about the Towrah harvest, and I asked God if we, once we're gone, if Asher could come with us, what happens with Asher? And his response is,
where do you think you're going?
So where do you think you're going? And you find out on Towrah, I'm not going anywhere, man.
We still didn't get an answer about the dogs, though.
Yeah, but well, we did actually, because Caleb was one of the 2 people led into the promised land.
But that's a man.
But Caleb means dog. So that's
God, you're reaching, pal.
That's a really, really good answer as far as I'm concerned.
That is good. That is good.
Yeah,
if a lamb can be doed, if a lamb can be doed, if a bull can be Yada, then absolutely Caleb can be, yes.
That is correct. That is correct. That is what he represents. So I'm viewing that as a win. I'm going with that as a win. But all the way along, that God does 2 things. One is he keeps it fun by keeping you humble, by giving you, palmoni or that sort of thing. But the other thing he does is he ups the ante. Every time you just get comfortable, it's okay, I can deal with that. Okay. You want me to be a toter? You're giving me 7 spirits. Okay, I can do that. And then you read it, it says, a knacker. Wait a minute. Everything this knacker said, people need to listen to and do. And you want me to fulfill that kind of, that's way too much pressure. And then you say, okay, well then there's 3 0 and you're one of the 3 0. Well, I can't live up to that. I mean, those guys were the greatest in your story. No way. Oh, then he throws out, by the way, you're the Adam of Parah. What? The Adam of Parah gets slaughtered.
Full stop.
What? And just when you think, okay, all right, I can live with all of that. Then he says, oh, by the way, you're my Dode and the story of Eldod, and which is the answer to Moshe when he gave up, when Yahweh says, not to worry, I got a couple of guys. and then it has, my Dode as a prophet. And you go, no, you don't want, no, I don't want that. Look what happened to your prophets. Your prophets were all trounced. No.
Welcome to the family, sir.
And then you find out in this kind of thing with Michael and the Palmoni that you've been brought back in time to serve as a prophet. But I gave that answer.
Yeah.
So you want to know about being a prophet? That's me giving the prophecy 2,600 years ago. And when you say, well, that's not possible, you weren't even alive. Wait a minute. So it's okay for Yahweh to take someone like Elia and Dode forward in time so that they can do a prophecy, but he can't take somebody back in time to do one. Right. So you're saying that Yahweh only has control of time in one direction?
I never said that.
I know. But for that argument, I know it's hard to put our heads around.
Yeah,
but
no, it doesn't.
For that argument,
logical.
What you're saying is that God can time is malleable for God relative to souls to bring them forward in time, but never back in time.
That's not logical.
That's not logical, is it?
No.
So we just have to get what, but then, it just, every time we turn around, God is upping the ante.
It was only you who painted yourself in the corner saying, I'm not a prophet.
Yes, true.
Not Yahweh.
Yeah, it's
You
true.
did that to yourself.
I did that to myself.
Yes, you did.
I did that to myself.
Mhm.
But that's what God does. He ups the ante. And it's kind of like, okay, your job is to clear the obstacles between here and heaven for my people so that they have a raised pathway to get home. And you have to clear all of the obstacles away. And just when you get the last obstacle cleared away, oh, by the way, here's another 10. Now, I don't want you to get too comfortable because, we have a lifetime of doing things together. I'm expecting big things. So here's
Did you read
another
my post on Facebook about getting comfortable?
Yeah. God wants us to continue to achieve all that is possible, and is saying, I know I
Get
can't
comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can't give you everything at once, and part of this too is something that is just so essential to understanding the nature of the covenant and what God created in this universe. There's a lot of folks, not a lot, but there are some very vocal people out there that are want to demean me in this role that God has assigned by saying that you have been wrong at times and you've changed your conclusion many times. And like, for example, on this, I'm saying that 22 May of 2026 can be exactly what I have thought in terms of the two-state solution, but it does not represent the harvest that begins the time of trouble. That is going to be the 11th of June.
You know what? It doesn't matter because Yahweh promised us certain set of parameters. That was that we would grow, that we would be enlightened.
Yes.
That we would also, as long as we were open-minded.
Right. So the point here is...
Doesn't make any sense.
That if God provided anyone, Moshe, Abraham, Dode, myself, any one of the prophets, a complete data dump where all they are now is their functional robots. They're megaphones, they're hands that write, but they're not thinking about any of this. They're not learning it. They're not processing it. They're just a AI. You tell it, I want this, and it spews it out. So it's not a person actually filtering this through and growing in the relationship. If God did that, there'd be no growth. There'd be no family. There'd be no concept of a father and son. But Yah's approach is very different. Yah's approach is, I am engaging with you as dad, and you are my kid. And with a kid, we don't start by saying, I think what we're going to do today is we're going to memorize the Encyclopedia Britannica. And then after we do that, then we're going to go off and learn atomic theory.
Okay, so that doesn't sound like fun to you, but it sounds like hilarious.
When you're 2 years old. What God says is there's things that are appropriate for each age. And as we grow up together, as you go from being an infant with me and just learning my name and coming in ideas to who I am, to the point that you have enough knowledge that you can look into this camera and speak to my people, that process we're going to engage in together. I'm going to teach you through my Torah, prophets, and Psalms and my spirit, and you're going to learn. And as you learn, you're going to grow in understanding. And part of that growth is that you refine and you learn things that you would never have known from the beginning. So, for example, when you're doing this analysis that we just shared, until you understand the importance of Towrah as the event of events in the last days, you're not capable of dating any one of these things. And until you really understand the full picture that God is providing, you can't even effectively translate. But proof is, look at how horrible all of the English translations are. So you really have to grow up with God in this role, which, I've got now 24 years of every waking moment essentially doing that. So that is his process. This is what he wants. And
All three of the Zeroah had a few decades into their work.
sure.
All three.
Yeah. And
No
what
exceptions.
what God is looking for is somebody who has the humility to say, I think there's a better explanation for this. And is willing to look you in the eye and say, I've learned something in the last couple of days. And based upon what I've learned, I want to share with you my thinking on this so that you understand these conclusions and why they were drawn. And that is something I think that all honest searchers want.
It's a great approach.
And it's something that God wants as well.
I'm somebody who could laugh at his wife calling him my Palmoni.
Yeah, indeed. You have to have a sense of humor to do this. So what do you think there, Keeper of the Cables?
Will there be a My Palmoni action figure coming soon?
Only if Leia makes one.
I can
Which
see
may.
I can see the song on the Palmoni.
Oh, don't give her any ideas.
Oh boy! I
late.
tell you what, after the red heifer, the Palmoni was just that's just perfect.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
And before we go,
Thank you, God.
I would like to announce that we do have a new song coming out, and we're going to premiere it on the YAHOWAH blog channel, which is the one with the blue background and the menorah. And so when we're done here, hop on over to the YouTube channel and check it out.
Yes. So we have the king up
This
there.
This song is dedicated to my friend Donald Trump.
First week in it, and we are experimenting with a variation of approaches to YouTube, and this is something we're going to do for most everyone now. Joins this live chat on Facebook because we've had such a wonderful reception on Facebook, and we want to continue to post news-related items and to have a family environment here on Facebook. But when you reach 5,000 friends on Facebook, it's just, you can have some followers, but it's essentially done. You've reached what you can do. And so we can use it as a wonderful family platform, but we're not going to reach more people through Facebook. No. I'm running ads now on Facebook, and in terms of bringing more people to this message at marginal utility. Yep. And so on X,
different strategies with
and
YouTube
on X, it's a highly hostile environment. I'll continue to work at it, but it is exceedingly hostile. And so I need to back away from it somewhat, because for our education as a covenant family and for my mental health, I have to spend a significant amount of my time in the Word of Yahowah, translating it, contemplating it, pushing the boundaries of what we can know so we can be more effective. That is what I am best at. And now I'm writing for these shows. So I'm not, even though I'm very close to having an entire new volume ready to go, I'm essentially writing for these programs. That is what we've just shared with you. So that's what we intend to do, which means that the biggest opportunity for us of upward growth is on YouTube. And we have a wonderful channel, the Yada Yahowah channel, that is managed by Stephen, and he has done a wonderful job for us. Yes, we have the Ameth channel that is managed by Charles, and he has also been spectacular for us. But we
have some new channels on like Insta and the rest that are coming up.
The two new channels I have neglected just because there's not enough time in the day to pursue them, and X and Facebook, and also translate and do these in the YAHOWAH blog. And Kevin has now taken one of those two channels, one being a backup and the other one prime, which is the YAHOWAH blog. So you'll find the YAHOWAH blog on the YAHOWAH blog. And what we eventually want to do is to move most of the chat room communication that is part of this show over to the YAHOWAH blog channel.
Yes.
And
from the lives and
to pursue it, because there is unlimited growth potential on YouTube. And then by referring between the three channels, that Charles has, that Stephen has, that he's managing for us, and this one, Kevin, that you're managing, then we will all, the tide is going to lift all of these ships. And I think this is our tremendous opportunity. We also have some wonderful covenant members that are contributing and putting these shorts on TikTok.
Mhm.
And I think we even have some Instagram presence now. We're growing nicely on Rumble, and we'll continue that. And so there's a lot of things that are going on now that are really wonderful. And I'm just so glad that we have now the time to pursue them. All right. We've now gone past 15 minutes past our
2-hour mark.
2-hour mark.
Yeah. He's a verbose man.
So I thank all of you for
Say good
contributing.
night, my Palmoni.
Yes, good night, my Palmoni.
Of course.
My sweet Leia. All right, gentlemen. Thank you. It's nice to see you in my pool, Kevin. I know I invited you for a visit. I didn't think it would be so soon. And Captain Kirk, take care of your lovely wife. We think the world of Sylvia.
Say hi to Sylvia.
She
for
has
us.
such a great attitude and is so sharp with the wit that she's a real treasure. And we
look who came to say goodbye.
we enjoy. Oh, the Wookiee came up for one last salute. This is the Wookiee salute. He was smiling there for a while. So Wookiee says goodbye. Asher says, I'm here too. I'm wagging my tail. So Shabbat Shalom. Good night, everyone.
Shabbat
We look forward to
Shalom.
being with you again tomorrow. May God bless.
Shabbat shalom.